Did I bite off more than I can chew in July? Yes. Yes, I did. Hello BookTube, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn Maya, sometimes called the Baby Boomer Booktuber. And this month I went overboard. I really went overboard. I wanted to do everything. I wanted to do readathons. I wanted to do buddy reads. I took out books from the library, and I even took out movies from the library. So you can imagine how it went. Not too well. But I did get a lot of books read, mostly for Jane Austen July, and I'm not going to talk too much about those books yet until the end of July because I'm still reading. But I wanted to give you an idea of how I went wrong. Okay, so the first book, and I was waiting for this book for a long time, it's French Braid by Anne Tyler. And I didn't even get to the first sentence of this book because there were so many other books that I had to get to that I have to bring this back to the library tomorrow. So, you know why I can't renew it? That's another thing. And what is it about? It's the Garretts take their first and last family vacation in the summer of '59. They hardly ever venture beyond Baltimore, but in some ways they have never been farther apart. I'm not going to read any more of it because I'm getting sad because I can't read it. I love Anne Tyler. Not all of her books have worked for me, but a lot of them have. So this one sounds good. It had mixed reviews. They said that it wasn't really about anything, and that doesn't bother me. So I'm still going to renew it, probably in the month of August. And I'll talk more about the month of August a little later. The next book is for Jane Austen July, and I'm so upset that I can't read it because I didn't realize it was this long. And it's Georgette Heyer's The Unknown Ajax. And I think I talked about this the last time. Georgette Heyer is an author that I'm really getting to like. I read Envious Casca, and I liked it. It was a mystery, and this is also a mystery. And for some reason, I'm not really getting into mysteries this month, and that's very unusual for me. So what is it about? Ajax is a name of somebody who's going to take over the family. So a past dispute. When the irascible Lord Darracot's elder son dies unexpectedly, the noble family must accept their estranged Yorkshire cousin as heir apparent. They're convinced he will prove to be a sadly vulgar person, but nothing could have prepared the beleaguered family for the arrival of Major Hugo Darracot. So I don't know what, I thought his name was Ajax, so I guess I was wrong. I didn't get to read this, but it sounds really good. And it was written during Jane Austen's time. So let me know if you've read this book. I'm also going, I might try and see if I can get it in before the end of July because it's really calling to me for some reason. Okay, then there's a book that I DNF'd for now. And that's an Anita Brookner book, Leaving Home. And I just started with an Anita Brookner book last month that was a 5-star read. And when I started reading this, I realized that it's a coming-of-age novel. I might like it. It has a mother-daughter theme. And I don't know, for that moment, I just felt that it wasn't going to work for me. But wait on, because I have another Anita Brookner book that I'm reading now that I'm going to show you right now, and it's called Strangers. And this book is about, I'm reading it now, so I'm not going to give you a review of it, but it is so over the top, miserable and sad that I like it. It's about this guy, old man, his name is Paul Sturgis, and he's resigned to bachelorhood, and he's in his 70s, so I could relate to him. but I couldn't relate to his personality. He longs to be with people, but he's so repressed in the, you know, the English word of English repression that it's almost ridiculous. And he wants desperately to make a connection, but for some reason he can't, or people don't take him the right way, and he's very lonely. And he meets a woman on a trip to Venice, and so far things are going from there. And when I say it's over the top, I mean it's really like quite miserable, but fun, and I'm liking it. So I don't know how I'm going to like Anita Brookner's books, so we'll see. One was a 5-star. This might be a 4 or 5-star, and I might not, this might be a DNF. Okay, so then I heard because I watch way too much booktube, let me just tell you that. I watch everybody's booktube channel and more. New ones. And I heard this, now let me see, I heard this on a channel. It was Berna of Berna's Bookish Adventures, and it's 9 Perfect Strangers. And I took it out of the library, and it was in my library. I didn't have to order it. And when I got it home, I read the first chapter. I said, I read this before. Where did I read this before? It's by Liane Moriarty, and I haven't read any of her books. So then I went to my Kindle, and I had a sample on my Kindle, and I had given it up just after the first 2 chapters. And when I got it out of the library, I didn't realize, I said, you know what? She liked it, Berna liked it, but I'm going to read it on a Kindle, and maybe next month, because I'm not going to read it now. It's just too much. So that's another funny library story. Then I talked about, and this is a Jane Austen thing, I talked about Sanditon, Jane Austen's unfinished novel, 11 chapters. And I had bought at my library sale Sanditon and a Gentleman. And this is Sanditon and a Lady. And it got better reviews than the one that I showed you. But again, I decided that I'm not going to read Sanditon this year, for Jane Austen July. And I'm going to read Lady Susan instead. But I'll get to that at the end of the month. So maybe I'll read it before next July. Who knows? But I'm definitely not going to read it by the end of the month. I just have too much going on. So it's also the first 11 chapters, and then it goes on from there. And I heard that she does it really well. She doesn't want to say who she is. She's anonymous. She's another lady. Okay, so then I got lost in Austen out, thinking I can finish it in 1 week. I'm still wondering if I can finish it in 1 week, because I already took out Pride and Prejudice, the mini-series, BBC, and I'm only on the first part of it. And I'm not going to talk about how that's going. Okay, so already I talked about all the books that I am not reading and haven't read. So you might be asking yourself, what has she read? Well, I have read a few books, but they're good books, most of them. Unfortunately, the first book was not a hit with me, and if I can find a GIF of it, I will put it in the description box. It is by Amor Towles, who's a darling on booktube. I think he has 3 Gentlemen of Moscow and a new one that I can't remember the name of. But the book that I read is Rules of Civility. And I just want to let you know that though this was a 2-star read for me, it is beloved for many people. And as we always say on BookTube, this is my opinion and nobody else's. So if you love the book, please forgive me, because I'm going to tell you how I really feel. And hey, at my age, I got to be real. The first thing I didn't like about it was, okay, his name was Amor Towles. I went in with maybe he's a woman, probably. And when I started reading the book, I knew right away this is not a woman, because this is a man writing women badly, in my opinion. I was right with the book, with another book that's a mystery. So I think I have a pretty good radar for who writes women well. I'm not saying a man can't write a woman well. I'm just saying this man didn't write women the way that I thought was believable. So what is Rules of Civility about? That's a good question, because I didn't think it was about much. It supposedly chronicles the life of a young woman in Manhattan. And listen to this. Her name is Katie Content. Okay. And she's constantly telling people it's not content, it's content. So I know this is symbolic of something, but nothing that really reached me. So she narrates her own journey through 1938 in New York with her friend Eve Ross, and they meet Tinker, this, blue blood New Yorker, in a bar on New Year's Eve, jazz bar, I think, in 1937, the last few, and the three develop a friendship. And basically, it's about the threesome. It seems like he likes Katie Content more than her friend, her good friend Eve Ross, who's a beautiful woman. But then the three are in a car accident, and he feels like it's his fault. It seriously injures Eve, and the three go on. He moves her into a luxury apartment, and he feels obligated to take care of her. So it's like, a story of, she's always thinking she loves him, and Eve is with him, so what can she do? Well, that's sort of the bad part. I shouldn't say that, but I didn't like the story. What I did appreciate about the author was his excellent research into 1930s New York City, which I did study a lot about. And that's where, at first I gave it 3 stars. But since I forgot about the story from the beginning of the month so much, I knocked it down to 2.5. So let me talk a little bit about how wonderfully he does New York. Some reviews said that, well, he only got the rich part of New York, but there was a rich part of New York in the 1930s, even during the Depression. And one thing I liked was that me and my daughter had went to the 21 Club right before COVID started, and the way it's pictured in the book was almost the way it was in 1938. And I found that as a historian, the book is, if you like romance, kind of not deep romance, and you like historical fiction with a very good picture of what the rich were like in 1930s, then I think you'll like this book, or you'll love this book. Unfortunately, I didn't like the characters. I couldn't feel close to the characters. I didn't even feel that they were written as real women of that time. But like I said, to each his own when it comes to reading, especially. And I hope that you'll like this book. And if you've read it and liked it, let me know, because tell me what maybe I'm not seeing that you saw. Okay, so that's the book that I didn't like very much. Then I read Jan Morris's Thinking Again, and I was very sad to find out that she passed away recently, very recently, because this book was written, I think, in 21, and I think she passed away in 22, and she's a 90. She was like 93 when she died, so bless her, you know, and she's so smart. So this is a diary form, and it's why I didn't give it 5 stars. Short stories and diaries, they don't work for me as well as novels or a novel form. So all I'll say about this is that she's delightful. I don't know if you know that she's one of the, you probably do know that she's one of the first trans people that came out. She was once, well, I'm not going to use her dead name, but she's a very interesting, she's a trans woman writer, and she's very smart. She wrote travel books about Europe. She wrote history books. She wrote so many books. And in this short story collection, which is her last, she writes, so she has another book, In My Mind's Eye, and now this is like a second part of the diaries that she writes every day. One thing I liked about the stories that I liked about it were she talks about her 1,000 paces a day, that no matter what the weather is, she walks 1,000 steps, which I think a pace is, which is not a lot, but if you're walking in the really cold weather, that would be a lot. And I try to do the same, so I really like that. And she writes a history of the F word that's hilarious. So just for those 2 entries alone, I would say read it, and especially if you like Jan Morris. So that's my 4.5 star. And another 4.5 star is The Secret Life of Church Ladies, which was bandied about BookTube last year as a great read, and I found it a great read. And even though the author, Deesha Philyaw, says that it's not queer lit, she doesn't say it's queer lit, most of the stories were about lesbians. And I found black women, all black women, and some of the stories were a little out there, maybe that I didn't connect to. Well, I'm not a black woman, but I mean out there in the storyline. What I loved about this book is that it's unabashedly African American, and it's about women who go to church but might have different feelings about what church means and what real life means. And though people who might be very religious might take it in a negative way, I thought it was delightful. I thought it was real. I just loved it. I loved it. And the only thing that kept me from giving it 5 stars, like I said, was that it's a short story collection. And it was published by, it got a lot of awards. And it was also published by a small university press, which gives us writers hope that maybe their book can get published somewhere and be well known. The beginning says, "Let it be known, I did not fall from grace. I leapt to freedom," by Ansel Elkins, autobiography of Eve. So I think that tells you that it's going to be a little real about, you know, the hypocrisy of some people in the church, and also the mixed feelings that church ladies have. Some of it is hilarious. So that's The Secret Life of Church Ladies. I really recommend it. Then, you know, it was Pride Month in June, and I call this sort of a Pride, since it's the author is not queer in Church Ladies, but the stories are. A lot of the stories are. So I call this sort of my Pride Month add-along. And then there's a real one. And of course, this is my first queer male-on-male romance that I've ever read. It's called Date Me, Bryson Keller, by Kevin van Whye, who's South African of mixed heritage. He's raised in South Africa, where his love for storytelling started at a young age. And I think this is his own story as a queer man. But I didn't really read much into that, except I know that. Okay, so what is this about? There's a story to it, why I said, okay, this happened. So it's each week the king of Fairvale Academy, Bryson Keller, must date someone new, the first person to ask him out on Monday morning, until a boy asks him out, and everything changes. So it was very a propulsive read, because one thing I didn't like was the cover, because it kind of tells you, so if you want to read it, maybe I shouldn't show you the cover, but it sort of tells you exactly what's going to happen. Well, you know, it's a happily ever after romantic story. So I really said, wow, I really like this book, my first male-on-male queer romance. And then I read that there's controversy with the author, because he took some of, or the whole premise of the story from Japanese manga. And he has a long, no, he doesn't have a prologue, but I think he has an epilogue where his acknowledgments. So he acknowledges that he took the story from various people, which is okay, because every story is not really new. But what people are saying is that he didn't give enough credit to the whole storyline of this Japanese manga book. I don't read Japanese manga, but if you do, you'll know what I'm talking about. But he says in the book that he was, you know, the story is his, you know, except for the story, if you know what I mean. So he took the outline of the 7 days, you know, that, you know, the joke, that, you know, the prank, and then the boy asking him out, and then they fall in love, etc., etc. So that whole story comes from the Japanese manga book. And if I have that information, I'll also put that in the description, because I don't want to look it up right now. But I enjoyed it, and I think it, you know, it was his story, but maybe not. So what do you think? Have you heard this controversy? I enjoyed the book, totally. I thought that the two characters, it was multiracial. It was just sweet. It had everything I wanted, but yeah, you shouldn't take things from other people, you know. So that's my story with this novel. Okay, so what else did I read? Okay, did I have a 5-star read? Yes, I did. And it was Howard's End by E.M. Forster. And I read this book as a buddy read, the best buddy read I've ever had, with Berna from Berna's Book Adventures and Jack from Spread Book Joy. And they are wonderful booktubers and wonderful women, and I am so glad I know them both. So I can't tell you what this book is about, because it's about so many different things. One thing I will say that I read is that Howard's End is ranked at 38th on a list of 100 best English language novels of the 20th century. That's saying a lot. So it has many layers to it. So we open the book with a letter from Helen Schlegel, and she's half German, half English, living, you know, she has her own money, and she had met with her, I think with her sister, a family on her trip to Germany, and they are the Wilcoxes. And she's writing to her sister saying that that she's visiting them, and she fell in love with Paul Wilcox, the youngest son. And it goes on from there. So what is this book about? It's about class. It's about women's rights, or the women's suffrage movement. And what I thought, in my own words that I wanted to write down, that it's a connection between families, and there's 3 families that are pictured in this. It's the Bast family, a lower class family. It's the Schlegels, sort of like upper middle class, and the very rich Wilcoxes, and how their lives intertwine. So Helen and Margaret represent the liberal side of the changing Edwardian period. And Ruth Wilcox, who was the mother of the Wilcoxes, she passes away, and she's sort of like the spiritual connection. And she owns Howard's End. It's in her name only. And she's into the earth, and she loved the house. So she leaves the house when she dies to Margaret Schlegel. Of course, she never knows this. And so she's remained close to the earth for generations, and her spirit is throughout the book. It's very apparent that she's in the book, even though we don't really see her too much. And there's a connection also between the values of the Wilcoxes, of money and commerce, and the values of the matriarch of Howard's End, Mrs. Wilcox, who passed away, and also between the Schlegels, and their lives intertwine. So some people think it's the central theme of this is what happens when relationships from people between different classes and different attitudes and values come together. So the attractions to each other in this book, and we see many reasons why they're attracted to each other, and it struggles between their ideas about class and the way of living. Anyway, I saw so many themes that related to my life. There's also a boy named Tibby, who's the brother of the Schlegels, and he's sort of like a character that is you know he's going to have a part in the book, but for most of the book he's just like almost like he's E.M. Forster, because he's a college student, only interested in himself. And I found that maybe E.M. Forster was sort of like a caricature of himself. Anyway, it's a wonderful book. It even has mental illness in it. It has so many modern themes that just blew me away. I hope that, you know, this was on my shelf for a long time, and I never thought of picking it up. In fact, I'm going to buy it again because I wrote all over it, you know, and underlined it and everything else. So this is where I'm ending my July, I should say not Jane Austen July, or sort of a Jane Austen July, and how you can really overdo it with your reading, and you bite off more than you can chew, and you take more books out of the library than you can possibly read in 2 to 4 weeks. Some books are in Hawaii are 2 weeks. And yeah, this is the way I always was. I'm greedy for books. So I hope you like this video. Please comment below and tell me if you've read any of these books, if you're greedy for books and take out more than you can read in one sitting, or in 2 weeks, or in 4 weeks. And please subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate you. And what I was going to say at the end is next month, August, is my 72nd birthday, and also my 2nd year as a booktuber. So I plan to do a few special things. So until we meet again soon, aloha.